Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to CCA Season 7 Division 1. I'm Sasu here with the incomparable, my pinkling partner in crime, Rose. And I do hope you like pink because we are back at it again, but this time with CCA, Rose.
Yes, and no you, pinklings of New York. We got this. We're so excited to be here back with CCA. CCA is one of my favorite parts of competitive Splatoon. Was not a thing when I was in college.
Me neither. We are old, so we're just enviously
Unk
like,
mode
listen,
activated.
it can't be us, so we're here to support you while it's you. So this is going to be some Collegiate Splatoon we have going on here, and not just Collegiate Splatoon, it's Div 1. So we have some heavy hitters here. RIT, Orange Ocean, that's from Rochester Institute of Technology. EaUCD Splatoon White versus California. I think we have like this sort of like regional showdown. East versus West, I think.
Yeah. Rochester's like on the literal opposite end of where we are in New York City, but in New York, just on the opposite end of the state, it's still east. We can call it East Coast, and of course against California over all the way on the west. And it's 3 hours earlier for them, crisp 2 p.m.
2 p.m.
Pacific. I don't know. That was kind of
Nice.
early when I was in college. I'd like sleep in really late. So.
Yeah, honestly, you have the class, you're like, it's Sunday. Sometimes people have like a weird, irregular Saturday one, but you're like, listen, it's Sunday, it's Splatoon Day, and we're going to be getting straight into it here, Rose. Let's take a look at these loadouts.
Yeah, starting off their very first game in this season of CCA of our best of seven week one. And, we've got that Dynamo. We've been talking about Dynamo a lot because we've got, that buff that came out a little while ago. So that's been really exciting to see. Already a brush going down on the side of RIT. Wishy-Washy on the Dynamo is holding a really, really great spot. And this is going to allow the rest of the team to start moving up because you see those drinks coming out.
Yes, but not without getting checked. Two members going to be down on either side, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the point that we see an Anova. I think that may actually be the person who is in Jet. No shock there. I think a lot of the time when people run an Anova, it's because they're hoping to just cycle through those Jets. And as it is now, RIT is really struggling to get both of those zones. It is umami, of course. You've got those double zones. It's super hard to keep them both painted, but things really back and forth. 1 minute elapsed and not really that many points on the board comparatively.
No, the thing about those double zones is that it can take a long time to finally get a strong hold on that. And of course, you mentioned that Aniki Nova, which to me, I'm just like, that's just Inkjet. That's not Aniki Nova, that's just Inkjet. They're just going to be cycling those Inkjets so frequently. We see they're only just now capping the second zone, giving them full control to start getting these points down. But two of them go down. UCD is going, no. We're not going to let you hold on to this too easily. RIT does still have control of the zone, but it's not going to last for too much longer because UCD is coming in now, starting to get those picks, and Never Lucky on that bucket. Gonna go down. Beam is getting ready. Just going, I'm going to be aggressive, but I also know what spot to hold here. I'm not going to go in. I'm not going to feed into a 1v4. I'm going to have to go down in this situation, but hopefully the rest of my team, because I was able to buy them some time by holding a good position, they can come in now. Victory dodging that splat bomb, that suction bomb, nearly getting them there. Sasu, this is still very, very back and forth. We have almost 3 minutes left to go.
Yes, there is still a lot of time, mind you. The triple ink strikes are going to come out to see if they can get both of those zones. Not going to happen. I think the Dynamo, aside from the fact that it's just so much easier to get those picks, Dynamo, before the buff, paints so much. So they're able to get that into neutral. You've got, like you mentioned, no sub, no main weapon, just special. The Nova popping that that inkjet, and I think several people going down here. So ultimately, they do put this penalty, and we saw before the dodge of that splat bomb. Not going to happen there with that Dynamo. So I think that RIT just kind of taking their time. But one thing I will note, Rose, is it feels like they're constantly going down there on RIT. I don't know if it's because they're just staggering. It can be so easy to stagger on a place like Umami, but every time I look up at that UI, it seems as though they can't necessarily have everybody up. I think UCD is just kind of undoing them at the seams one by one. Look at that, 2 people down.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you're running a backless comp like you see on the side of RIT here in the blue, you got to be really careful that you're not having 4 people just constantly running in and dying. You really got to make sure, like, okay, we've lost people. Like, they're now down 3 people. At this point, you know, like, okay, well, that push is dead. We have to wait for everybody to come in at this point. And it's been allowing UCD having definitely a lot more range on this between Dynamo and the Nautilus, being able to be like, okay, we don't have massive range, but, you know, we outrange a whole lot of you, and we're just going to make sure that we're playing good spots. I mentioned Wishy-Washy on this Dynamo, who is somehow going to hit that. Oh my gosh. I thought they were done for, but able to just squish Never Lucky with the power of that Dynamo. Has just been able to hold really good positions. Is going down now, but there's less than 10 ticks left on the Splat Zone's counter. Even if UCD can't hold both zones right now, just being able to stall one out is huge, but they do have both, and that is going to go down all the way to 0 in their favor, UCD getting that very first point.
Yes, I think that I agree with you. They were just really taking their time, making sure not to overextend. They know that they have the range and the ability to really, you know, RIT, you see the Innova, you know that that's just a jet, but when they don't have that jet, they're vulnerable. It takes 5 shots to get someone down, and that's a lot in a fast game like Splatoon. So I have to wonder if going into this next game we're going to be seeing some comp changes. As you can see below, it will be Rainmaker, Robo Ramen. I wouldn't be so surprised if RIT said, listen, we did our thing, but we might want to tailor this up against, now knowing the weapons we're going to be seeing. I'd like to see perhaps a Splat Charger in a place like this to perhaps take care of that Dynamo if anyone on that team can play one. And it never hurts to have a vac on Rainmaker.
Yeah, we saw, when we were watching some Splatoon last night, the two of us, we saw a lot of V-Charger come out specifically for that ink vac to have on hand for Rainmaker games. And I'm not entirely sure of all the weapons that are played on RIT Orange Ocean. I know that Never Lucky I've pretty much always seen on some kind of slosher weapon, usually just, you know, the slosher, like we saw in that last one. And it can work very, very well here. But like you said, this Dynamo, I think this is another Dynamo playground if they can set up in very nice ways around like glass and just flick ink over. They can set up to be relatively safe so long as they're playing their angles and timing right and be able to control a lot of space. So RIT Orange Ocean is going to have to really figure out, how do we adapt to this? How are we going to work against this Dynamo? Because I think that really is going to be the crux of, we need to not go down to the Dynamo. We need to not feed into the Dynamo. We have to respect the space that they own. But we also know the Dynamo, we saw that, I think we did see the Dynamo go down to, you know, a splat bomb and whatnot. That it's got a lot of dead time in those animation frames.
And I think, but to make up for that, I believe that California, they also have a brush on their team, if I'm not mistaken. So they have this really slow weapon, but this is also a really great place, I'd argue, for brush. It has a lot of that verticality and those flanks, you know, you're pushing, and very much so that brush can come out of nowhere, flank everybody, and then just you're moving up to the enemy elbow, and you think you have it in the shade, you're trying to get that check, and little did you know, the brush like dropped to the bottom of Robo Ramen and just flanked all of you. And that's like completely not what you want to see. And even on top of that, even if they're not flanking you, I feel like you still have a guy at that back checking the flank for the brush. Just knowing that they're in the cosmos is enough of a threat. So
exists somewhere in our cosmos we must be aware of. We will have to see what teams adjust and how they adjust, because we do know both teams are subbing out a player, so potentially we see something very different going forward into this game too. Rainmaker on Robo Ramen gonna be an interesting one, because it's you hit that first check and then it's really okay, we got to figure out when can we push forward from that check towards the goal, because we can get a lot of points, but if we don't have that space cleared, then we're not going to get very far.
You're not going to get nothing. And you see on screen, I think some of the picked or projected weapons, I know that some people kind of, it's very dependent for them where they're going, why, you know, because we saw Pampers before. I think on that Nautilus, if I'm not mistaken. So I think a lot of the time it's kind of like, what am I looking at? I think that Rain was probably really good for a zone's umami, so I wouldn't be surprised you see that well string there. A lot of backline players will switch over to a well string. Maybe not a lot, but it's definitely a choice that you do see where someone says, listen, it's just better to have well string. I can still do my backliney things, get that immediate pop, destroy the other team who maybe forgot that I was here. And Rush, they say, we're going to get pop. No, you're not. I've got the well string that is going to explode in our color. And I think having something like that, no, unfortunately, our wishes. No, it was California that has the dynamo. So
yes, yeah, it was wishy-washy. Who,
yeah,
I don't know, might go to the well string on here. I see no well strings. On the pencil, which is very different and not really what I would expect on Rainmaker here, but it's super different. I like to see the change. We've got a heavy now over on the side of RIT Orange Ocean. Pampers holding the spot here. They know, like, okay, let's not move forward until we've cleared the space. RIT, though, giving up a little space here because they did lose 2 people in that fight. UCD not pushing in too much yet. And, you know, I mentioned that you can get a lot of points very quickly on this map, but you also will not get any points if your team is not ready to push in.
Yes, and you see, I would argue, I don't know that RIT is ready. I'm surprised that UCD has not picked that up and simply dunked it. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we have 2 brushes going on. I said that they're going to have to watch for that brush, but they came with one of their own. So right now, I think that is eventually going to be the check there for UCD, but RIT maybe instead choosing to let that just reset while they try and figure mid out. Never Lucky in a really terrible position. It's kind of
unlucky.
I feel like on the comms, it was like, do they see me? Yes, they saw you. Unfortunately.
Shoot, they see me.
Yes.
Very back and forth at this point. Not a whole lot of things. I mean, there's a lot happening. There's no like real major advantage happening here. That first check is really, that's a formality. That's well, we just have to get that before we get more points there. You only get to 70 there. Really, it's how far can you take that past the check. UCD getting that first check does mean that should they get a lot of people down over on RIT, and they are starting to get those picks in now. They're making sure not to run in too aggressively when they're not prepared. The strikes are going to come out, and that does clip Beam right there. Beam going down after throwing down the Booyah. Never Lucky does spot Wishy-Washy, gets the kill there, goes down themselves, going back and forth. And that is a wipeout. UCD can start running forward for those points, but it's just Pampers there. Victory's like, I'm going to go down, but oops, I at least made you back up for a moment there. Possibly still not a great run from there. And Pampers holding this Rainmaker, getting some good kills with it, showing it as a weapon, and still only to 50 points out of all of that.
UCD is playing really interestingly careful, I would argue. There's a lot of times where it feels like they would have been able to eke out a bit more points, they kind of bide their time instead, and I think they're kind of getting punished for it. Once again, we are in a situation where I feel like I'm seeing a lot of people go down from RIT. I look up, you see that's 2 down for them, while UCD, they have their brush out of commission. I think that's another person down due to that hammer. You would think that this is a free-for-all or something. It almost doesn't feel like Rainmaker because everyone's trying to get the picks. It feels as though they get them, but just nothing's really happening with them. We have finally that pickup, and I think we might have that dunk while they wait for that pen to be taken care of. We still don't have that dunk. They're just waiting here. You know, this is a very stally game, and I don't know. I feel like I can't quite figure out why everyone is playing so careful given the picks they're getting.
It is a tough one to make those runs on. RIT does recognize the advantage they have in that moment. Never Lucky goes for even more points. Down to 19 is really not bad to be on. Still totally beatable for UCD so long as they set this up. They want to, you want to play patiently, but not overly patient. You want to make sure we're not feeding in and running into situations that are not advantageous for us. But we have to start taking space. We have to start, once we've got that space, really take advantage of it. And Pampers with the Nautilus can really set up for that. But it's gonna go down. Victory, of course, on that brush can move in so quickly and moved in without being spotted. I didn't even notice them for a second. We were looking at the same POV. And I don't know, it's looking a little dicey now from UCD. You were mentioning how, you know, they haven't been going in for a whole lot of points because I think just RIT was doing a pretty good job of making them feel too afraid to go in. And they're paying for it now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that, honestly, it wouldn't be crazy to say they might have more points on the board comparatively, but you see this double, this triple giving the Flow Aura, tried to go for that quad, not going to quite happen, but their teammate going to trade them out at the end. And so with all of those people down, that should be UCD's time to just get these points. You see they've already moved up to the elbow. Beam going to get a really critical pick on that brush, which is going to activate the Flow Aura as well. They have the Booyah ready, and I think we had a Kraken online. Unfortunately, that brush is going to go down. So now the strikes defensively come out along with that wave breaker. Lots of specials, 2 people down. Rose from RIT, that's going to be also, and it is just Wishy-Washy who was here on the team. And
oh no!
He's coming down. Oh my gosh, Rose, I was really, that would have been the comeback of the century if they were able to.
Oh my god.
Whoa, that was like a shark in the water. Dun, 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 dun. Watching victory come for them. They missed it, but they closed it out at the end. That is some Splatoon.
Oh my gosh. That juke unfortunately did not pay off. It looked like it was going to for a moment. I just like, oh, I'm dipping back. Oh, and I'm swimming back up. But no, just took too much damage. Went down in the end. There was a good idea, but the writing was on the wall once Wishy-Washy is the only one holding that Rainmaker and saying, oh, all my friends are dead.
Gone. I'm alone. And you know, it can be doable sometimes, but it's hard when you have this rush mode brush with your number hunting you down, just going for you. But what an ending to that particular game. That is going to tie it up 1-1. That ending was just too funny, but I think
it was cinematic.
Yeah, absolute cinema. But I think that, you know, we're going to be heading in this time to Tower Museum del Alfonsino. And we already saw a lot of changes, I think, for RIT Orange Ocean. They switched it up quite a bit, and I guess that worked out well for them, especially because, like we mentioned before, felt like EaUCD Splatoon White was a little bit like tentative about going into them. Something, I don't know, maybe their aura switched with their weapons.
True. Yeah, I do wonder if the pencil was the pick that was the best for their comp and what they were doing. So it felt like to me, RIT was really struggling against that Dynamo. So I'll be curious to see what they end up doing. I do know that Splatoon White is subbing again, so we'll have to see who ends up being out, who ends up coming back in. I wouldn't be surprised if Wishiwashi still stays in as an anchor. And Pencil, I don't think is a bad pick, or any charger to have on Museum Tower. I think is a strong pick. As good as I think that Dynamo was on game 1 and could have been on game 2 for UCD, I hate fighting chargers on Tower Control Museum.
And especially if that charger is specifically an E-leader. E-leader on Museum can be so oppressive. Having, like, as we all know, and gosh, if it's scoped, even worse. But when you are on that E-leader, you can just stand on your plat and snipe someone off of their own plat. There really is nowhere to stand where you're safe when there's an enemy E-leader, and even worse, on tower control, they know exactly where you are. It's really just point and click, and I think even worse, people talk about how in Squid mode they've nerfed the hitbox for chargers, but they have buffed how easy it is to hit someone in kid form. So if you are standing on that tower, you think you're skinny mini behind the tower like pillar, but that E-leader may just be able to see the pixel of you sticking out and still snipe you dead. So if they do happen to have a leader in that pocket, wouldn't be surprised if they choose to go that instead. But now that I think about it, Wishiwashi was the pen and the Dynamo, meaning they are the cooler for their team. If they switch onto something like E-leader, they're going to have to force somebody else onto that cooler position, and I don't know who that'd be.
Yeah, so it's possible we'll see that Pencil coming in here. Yep, we do have the Nautilus and the Pencil, and so Kibri has on a Splatling, so it'll be an interesting matchup between the Splatling and the Pencil. Pencil's gonna have that range advantage over RIT's Kibri House, but Heavy can do a lot of turf control, so we will just have to see how it happens to go down in the opening. So far, benefiting RIT very strong. Pampers being forced to run away and even getting checked by that Stamper.
Listen, Rose, you were talking about that map control with the Heavy, and we're seeing that pay them back in spades. So far, everything is absolutely covered in that blue ink. You see Victory just sharking, getting that pick at the end there, harassing the pen, doing the good old S. They are going to go down, but more importantly, because that pen was focusing on them, they were not focusing on the tower. And you see already, less than a minute in, we are at checkpoint 3, so everyone is just throwing themselves at the tower to see what they can do. The last person, I think, is perhaps gonna go out there, so that is going to spell the end of that push. But down to an 8, that's practically a knockout there, Rose.
Yeah, they went through every single checkpoint on that. It's going to be up to UCD to start their own push now that Crab was not able to last for very long. Nightbloom getting attacked by Victory on the brush. Manages to win that fight, though. It is looking a little dicey for RIT at this point. They are losing a lot of ground. Kibri House is so close to dying, does go down. That's, these Stampers have more range than you would think.
Yeah, this is really precarious because you have that classic Crab spot of being in mid. Ultimately, they vacate the premises. You have the pen, of course, taking on that tower, and I think that is the rain coming out of the Nautilus. But RIT does a really good job of getting everybody out of that position. I think once that Crab ended, they're like, all right, we're not getting that dual pressure from all of that range. We can take control of the map once again. Splatant in that bottom right, going to jump in, very luckily, just as that Booyah Bomb ends, so they're not going to get punished for that. But ultimately, You know, they got through that first checkpoint, them being UCD, but it feels as though without this map control, without the use of specials, it's just so difficult for them to get a push in on RIT.
Yeah, Kibri House, having less range than a pencil, but has been able to avoid the pencil's sightlines most of this game so far and has been picking fights with the other members over on UCD. At this point, being forced to go down there, that's 2 members, half the team on RIT down. They're going to have to give up this spot. The Staper going to jump in, though. They're got an eye out with the victory on the brush. UCD, though, you see, they're throwing things. They've got the rain coming out. We've got Nightbloom's gonna go down to a Booyah Bomb, going back and forth, but trades are only going to benefit RIT at this point. UCD definitely wants to make sure that they're able to keep control of this map. That's why you see Pampers cannot go up further from here. Has to make sure that the rest of the team goes down, but has less range than their opposing Splatling, and it's just so hard to get in past mid here for them.
Yeah, what I'm thinking is happening is you see Never Lucky just ledging out that pen, and of course you have the brush as well, trying to dive the pen whenever they can, which leaves their heavy open to mow down just about everybody else. But you see, I think that UCD has done a good job of getting those people down, but once again, you need your specials to even keep that space. That's going to be the Crab finally running out, but 2 of their members went down at the time. You see 2 people bottom right. I think Victory able to trade out their teammate there, and there's just a scuffle, a bloodbath in that bottom right, or an ink bath rather. And Nightbloom finally on the plat, ready to fight, but you have Nether Lucky just descending from the heavens. They're getting the trade, and we are less than a minute in. Still, UCD is at 53. I think finally they're trying to make some work on that score, but they're just stalled on their right. We have not seen them get past the enemy plat even once. We'll see if they can do it in the final 30 seconds, but it's not looking good there, Rose.
No, RIT's been doing a great job of taking these fights in together. We had a few staggers from both teams a little bit earlier. Now it looks like RIT is stabilizing. They've got such a solid advantage. These last 15 seconds, they want to make sure, let's keep members alive and make sure that UCD cannot establish a really strong control. But as I say that, RIT's going down like flies, one after the other. This is a great time for UCD to go on, but not if there's nobody on the tower.
That's absolutely tragic. I don't know how this happened, but no one on the tower is going to mean there's no overtime. And RIT, just when it was looking a little bit dodgy for them, is going to take their second game. How unfortunate. I think sometimes it is a case where you're like, somebody get on tower. You hear the call out and you're like, I don't know who somebody is, but it's not me. And everybody thinks that. And then next thing you know, nobody's on the tower.
It is tough. I have the opposite problem. When we hear somebody, we all go, me. And then we're like, oh no, now we're all...
And then the
we
dynamo.
need to all stop being so helpful.
That is certainly not my pro. When you guys say somebody get on the tower, I'm certainly like, you're not talking to... I'm the Clash Blaster. Like, you're talking to somebody else. I'm... looks left, looks right. Unless I'm the edit, I guess. Then I'm like, oh, that is me. My bad. But yeah, what an unfortunate end to that game. But in all honesty, RIT Ocean, Orange Ocean, they played a really dominant game, just having all of that paint. I think if you just looked at the comps, you would think, first of all, RIT Orange Ocean was not running a cooler. It didn't feel like it, because they were up the whole time, but they just weren't getting punished for their downtime ultimately, and they were arguably outranged by that pen, but still the Heavy was able to get so much use and value out of being that Heavy. We saw them outrange that Nautilus. We saw them, we almost never saw them engaging with the pen at all. So in some sort of way, I think they said, listen, we have these more skirmishy weapons that can deal with the pen, harass them, make them look elsewhere, and I outrange everybody else on the team, so I will handle that. And I think that divide and conquer strategy really worked for them.
It did, and as risky as I thought that final engagement was from RIT's side, I was like, oh no, you've got such a strong lead. You don't need to throw literally everything at this right now. You can afford to be a little patient here. But it was such a distraction that UCD Splatoon White was just pulled all away from the towers, so that even though they got several nice picks in, and nobody was on the tower to actually then take advantage of that overtime being ready to start.
Yeah, I think, in all fairness, maybe they're like, we don't need patience. We have GG strikes. We could just kind of, and I get it. I feel like when I have, especially if I have, and they had 2 GG specials. I don't know if they were necessarily ready, but they had a bucket who had the triple ink strikes, and their stamper had the booyah bomb. So I guess they were like, even if we F around and find out, they will find a GG special or 2 on the tower when the time is right. So if one of them goes down, we're good to go. And I feel like sometimes you get a bit of loosey-goosey when you know that you can force the game to end. But, like, if any of you watch the NA League, we saw when Free Flow in that crab-like game got hit with
power.
2 GG specials and still somehow made a 70 to almost knockout push and took it at the end. So you can't take it for granted, but I guess we'll never know because no one was on the towers, so they didn't have to worry about it nonetheless.
We didn't get to test it this time. We have another sub happening over on UCD heading into our next game. I am wondering if the Dynamo is ever going to come back out, because it worked so well for them in game 1. And as I say it is back now. We're going to have to find out, was that the missing sauce from the previous 2 games that RIT won over UCD?
Listen, I am Sasu. I know sauce. And I think that Dynamo definitely has the sauce. Crab, like, well known for being one of the hardest places to push in, bar none. Sometimes you just go into these nasty OT situations because just nobody can get up there, and you see Wishy-Washy checking those flanks, and I think other updates that we need to mention. There's been a change to the Rapid that has the cooler. So RIT this time around, they are going to be coolered and going up against the Stamper with Crab this time.
Yeah, Crab also very good on Crab Leg, who would have known. So we've got a lot of different tools, and right now things are looking up for UCD. They're getting ready. Beam's throwing those clams forward, saying somebody else get the power clam ready. I'm going to go Crab, and that is a great spot to do it from. They're going to get checked, though, but not a bad opening. They're not going to translate that into any points now, and I don't know. Kite's being kitey, just being like, I'm gonna draw attention over here, and then I'm gonna go over here. Staying alive through all of that. So even though multiple members of UCD went down, they didn't actually lose that much map control.
Yeah, classic brush behavior there. I think, anyone who has played with the brush and clams know that they're just like, listen, I'm going to risk it for the biscuit. If I can stay by this basket, something can happen. But speaking of brush, we're looking at the opposing brush here. Victory just sharking on that top right, perhaps seeing if they can get someone go in, but they got the pick on Wishy, and that is going to be huge. They are this weighing. They get a trade into a wipeout, but I don't know that their team has the clam economy, so they're very quickly going to rush in there, see what they can do, but already UCD is back and ready to defend. So unfortunately, still a little bit of work to be done for getting the basket open, but we'll see if they can do it.
Yeah, they might be making something happen right now. It's hard to say. That power clam is about to break. It was grabbed in time. Keeper House able to throw that in time, but they are the only member of RIT still alive, and they're going to have to go, you know what? I know we only got 20 points off of that, but I need to go back because now UCD gets to have their turn, and they have tons of clams at their disposal to go pick up. Right now, it's that Octobrush who's holding all of the clams now, and they're just going down one after the other. So as I say that, UCD now losing tons of map control here.
Yes, just like that. But I think if they can get it back by Kite getting these picks, that would be really helpful for them, especially because one of the most dangerous things in Splatoon, in clams in particular, is a brush that has exactly 7 clams. Because they might just run up there, scoop up one single clam, and dunk that in. But ultimately, Kibri House on that top right, I think, is just checking everybody who dares walk forward. I think that range is working for them fabulously. And once again, we're seeing UCD just lose their map control. I don't know what it is about their comp. Maybe it's because their anchor, so to speak, is a little bit slower, but it feels like as soon as they get a bit of that spacing, they just kind of lose it fairly quickly.
Yeah, sometimes it is a little bit difficult to play with certain like anchor options if you're not used to it. And I think sometimes it's a pacing control problem, being like, I want to run in really aggressively. And my anchor's not ready to support that at this point. So I'm gonna have no support as I run in, and then I'm gonna die off of that. So I think we're just seeing a lot of mistimed pushes in and whatnot. It's a large map. It's not that uncommon for these improper timings to happen. It's also such an annoying map. Wishy-Washy, though, is holding this area. They're going to have to let that power claim from Victory go in off of that. If they play this well, though, that does mean that RIT did score on them and only got down to 52 from there. I say that with 30 seconds left to go and no points on the board yet for UCD.
Gosh.
And
Yes.
they are just stuck in their spawn, Sasu.
Yeah, and Splatent, I think they were just watching those 2 clams, making sure that nobody could pick those up. And so now that they're stuck, even with all of the painting options that they have, they sent out that rain. Of course, they have the Dynamo sending that out. I think that is going to be a pick, a trade, and they cannot afford for that to happen. Kite knows that there's only 2 people, but they're trying to make something happen anyway. And I think that it is just the Pity Clam that's online. So they're going to have to figure something out in excess of 2. But once again, UCD, same old story. They don't have any map control into a wipeout, so that is just going to be about time. Even if they didn't break that barrier, overtime most certainly would have been done. So that is yet another win here for RIT.
Really strong win from RIT on this one. They've really struggled on that first game that we had in this match. But they only have to win one more. Best of 7. They only got to get to 4 points here. They've played these past 3 games very, very strong. And now it looks like Splatoon White is really the one struggling, going, okay, they adapted to us, but we're really struggling to do a, Uno reverse adaptation against them.
And even worse, I think that they went back to the Dynamo, which is what gave them so much trouble in that first game, and clearly it didn't necessarily work out here. Now we will be going to Zone's Urchin, and I think that Dynamo definitely super strong here. I feel like literally one flick of Dynamo over the top might be able to just cap the entire very small, very skinny zone. So I can see that making a comeback, but maybe we have a switch off of that crab, off of the crab stamper that we were seeing. We're gonna have to perhaps tweak these a little bit to see now that RIT Orange Ocean is playing a comp that's a little bit less. I think their first comp was kind of wonky. They now have a brush that they didn't have before. They're running an Nova, which you don't often in competitive Splatoon. This is UCD's last time to really adjust and figure out what it is they have to do to mount a comeback.
Yeah, at this point, they have to reverse sweep it. They got that first game, but they have to win 3 more games. They have to win all of the next 3 games to emerge the victors of this set.
And it's doable.
It's doable. It's difficult.
Yeah.
But it is doable.
And sometimes, people play better with their backs against the wall. They're like, listen, it's crunch time. If we lose this, that's it. And I think that now that they maybe don't have that freedom, that might make them more mentally lock in. And I think something
Mhm.
that also helps sometimes is if you have a map mode that you really like coming up and you say, we're so going to win that, you know that all
Mhm.
you have to do is get there. And so you're fighting for your right to play on, like, for me, it would be Inkblot tower control.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I would see that and I would be like, I have to get, because I know I can win it. So urgent zones, I'm just going to have to figure it out because the real game begins when we get to that last game. But let's load in here. We do have that switch from the Crab to the Booyah Stamper and a switch back to the Anova. Honestly, this is a good jet map, so I can't tell whether I'm surprised or not. But
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen that Aniki Nova come back, but it is here now. UCD going to be the ones who are pushing forward, getting that first pick, but going down themselves, back and forth, left and right. And now it's the Aniki Nova, the only one alive from RIT. They just have to let that zone go into the favor of UCD and go, you know what? All right, the rest of the gang's here. The jet's being activated. Let's go. Air support, unfortunately, is neutralized. Never Lucky going down themselves. Kibri House just got to be like, oh, I gotta get out of there. Never mind.
though I also noticed that both teams have put their brush away and have come here with a dynamo ready. So let's see if that is helpful for them. But in the meantime, Never Lucky kind of getting bombed out in that top right corner. And speaking of which, Nightbloom maybe doing a bit of the same, gonna get a pick on that top right. And all the while, UCD
Oh.
has been tick-tocking away at that zone. They are already in the 20s, and it feels as though RIT has just been struggling to move forward. I think they ultimately get that jump. They camp it. They get the picks needed necessary. They stop the bleeding just in time, allowing UCD a 16 points while they move in. But of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our RIT has no penalty. So just like that, those points can be down before you know it.
They can. Nightbloom narrowly avoiding that splat bomb being tossed behind them while they were in Crab Pampers, hugging this top right area, making sure to provide some support for Nightbloom, who was taking a fight there, lost it. Pampers also now being pushed away. UCD having a really hard time getting back in. I'm not sure that they're going to get back in before the lead swaps.
Yeah, like I said, I think you see that they hadn't touched the zone at all, and deceptively, you're like, oh, wow, they're in a bad spot. But you see, they're just struggling to get back into that mid. We are in the single digits, but it's just the Anova up, so now they have to pay for their life. They do so, especially with the support of that rain. They're moving in to try and take that last pick because they know the Anova has its jet. They don't want to deal with it. I think that's probably half of the reason that they were stuck in their spawn to begin with. But they do pop the jet. They don't quite get anything out of it. Those tri-strikes are going to come out, as well as every single other special really that they have available. And I think UCD were closing in on getting rid of their penalty, but RIT trying to lock them out in the same position they had them earlier in the game.
Yeah, it's, 14 versus 16, not a huge difference, but a fair number of penalty points does mean that if UCD wants to stay alive and survive and move on to the next game, not get knocked out from week one, they're going to have to make sure that they do a long hold on that zone to get through 55 penalty points to start ticking down below the 16. A pick from Pampers onto that Stamper's going to be really good. Not able to secure the pick on Kibri, but Wishy-Washy on the big Dynamo paint from above, able to get it, trying to stay alive here and camping those ledges as a Dynamo does. But you know what's another ledge camper is Never Lucky on the Slosher. Kibri House, the other Dynamo over for RIT, also going down, and it's Nightbloom being able to camp a jump in. And it looks like there's been a little bit of panic from both sides as members from both teams are just like, I gotta get in. I gotta get in. Beam wants to make sure that this zone stays in control of UCD, but of course they did lose control for a bit, so that's even more penalty points that UCD is gonna have to wait through.
That's gotta be frustrating because they were really close to just getting rid of that. Those strikes are going to come out. Not enough to paint over it, but with some supplementary manual paint, they do eventually get it. We are in our final minute of play. UCD really gonna have to lock in. They have the they have the zone right now, but I'm thinking that if they're hoping to take this back, because it's so easy to neutralize this zone, and 3 of the members going down here while I'm talking about it, Beam gonna have to give up that space, and I think just 30 seconds left. They ultimately are gonna stay alive here. The rest of their teammates are coming in, but Urchin is a big place. They're gonna have to get some critical picks if they hope to get back into mid, because we've seen them more than once get locked out. The Booyah Bomb gonna come out a little bit early, but they're kind of Hail Marrying it. Beam is in zone. Splatint just kind of biding their time. Gonna get out of there, and ultimately UCD stops a disaster from happening, but there's still more to go in OT.
Yeah, and they've just lost 2 people. It's going to be so tough. Beam and their teammate to be able to keep that zone painted. And they know they're not the strongest painting weapons. They just have to be like, I have to keep you from getting there. Never Lucky tries to make a run for his zone, doesn't get it. Penalty points are nearly through for UCD. They are now ticking down. They have to reach 3. That zone is neutralized. It goes back into control of UCD, but it's going back and forth and back and forth. The rain's out and Lit's still stay alive to take the game. They are still in the match.
That was insane. At the end, it was just a paint off. I think you have the Nautilus getting their rain to just help them out. I was just thinking, I know you want to paint the zone, but you have to get out of zone, because if you die there, you die in zone. That might be disastrous. I think, unfortunately, a member did go down in zone, and I was like, oh no, you might literally lose the game because of one pick. But we had those 2 members on RIT, on UCD, just painting their little hearts out, keeping that in neutral, and they got exactly what they needed to happen. Rose, we saw OT was mounting. We were in like the 10s, and they were just trying to get out of their spawn. They really fended off disaster more than once in that game.
That was so close. I think that ending with Pampers and the Inkstorm coming out from their Nautilus really saved the day, to have that overtime clinch, just being like, okay, just put enough paint on the zones that I can keep paint on the zone and we can keep control. And yeah, if that had ever flipped from neutral over back to RIT side, that we'd be done.
Listen, like I said, sometimes people just love the clutch. They love the clutch. They love the showmanship. That's like a part of it, because clearly I was looking at what was going on and I was like, that might be it. But they know, once again, backs against the wall. RIT Orange Ocean is at set point, while Splatoon, like UCD Splatoon White, still has a bit of climbing to do, of course, to get to that final game. They're gonna have to take a Scorch Gorge Rainmaker in order to do it. Like we did see this yesterday when we were watching a Ludi set, but we're not going to be looking necessarily for a knockout here. It is so usually something sneaky is afoot when you see a knockout on Rainmaker Scourge. Either that or like 3 consecutive wipeouts. But
yeah, the wipeouts are bad there.
I wouldn't put it past UCD Splatoon White the way they've been playing. They might just pull it out at the end, get those knockouts that they need, and keep the set going.
Yeah, and if they have a really strong opening, they're able to get an early lead. It does take off a little bit of pressure, you know. Okay, we can play defense now. If we start off and get that really nice early lead, we can just make sure that we're controlling space and not letting RIT get in and score a ton of points whenever they do their pushes. Those pushes are committal. You do know that when you pick up the Rainmaker, unless you are dunking it for checkpoint, you will die at some point.
Yes.
Either the Rainmaker's going to explode when you run out of time, or somebody's going to shoot you down before then. So it is
You're like,
often
no, we
fairly committal.
We got this. That's why what I'm really going to be excited to see is the change we're seeing perhaps in these weapons. No changes here for UCD, and no changes. I mean, they do change back to this rapid. They're not going to have a dynamo this time around, but they're keeping that Innova online instead. And I will say that rapid is going to be some risky business for that dynamo.
That's true. That rapid has a ton of range. I've always found it funny that we have, range blaster named the way it does. And then I'm like, the Rapid Pro has so much range.
That's the true range blaster. And you see here, 2 members down, but one of them has a jet ready to take Wishy-Washy out. I'm sure you're talking about how you're probably going to go down. I'm assuming Wishy-Washy was able to get that cooler out beforehand. We have a trade in that right, and ultimately they do go down. So that is going to be it, at least for that run. But it seems as though Beam taking all that.
Oh, I didn't expect that.
Yeah. Splatin clearly knows ball. Whoa, Rose.
I didn't come here to mess around. You thought you had my jump, but no. I'm going to get you instead. Back into a strange neutral situation. Trades happening yet again. Beam being forced to move off to the right side. Really stuck on their own at this point. 2 members of RIT staring them down. They had to duck away into cover for a little bit, but still, they're all alone. But no, the teammates from afar being like, I'm going to help you out, but we are going to go down, unfortunately. Beam forced to use their special just to stay alive at this point. They're going to throw it right in that mid area. And I can't even believe they're still alive. And There we go, Commentator's curse. Finally, Beam goes down.
Yeah, I was thinking, listen, I'm a weenie. I simply jump out. I leave. So Beam kind of living for that entire time, extremely impressive. But in the meantime, RIT has been able to move up. They're trying to make a pass at that first check. And you see, we are nearing halfway through this game, and neither team has gotten that first check. That's how tense it's been. Victory, of course, going to get that pick there in that elbow position. They see people kind of going on into the opposing sort of section. They take care of them for whatever reason. They said, I don't like people being behind me, so I'm just going to delete them. And in the meantime, just going to shark. I think they get located, as brushes tend to do. And ultimately, they try to get out of there, but not going to happen. They get traded out by their mate, and people are down on both sides here.
Yeah, still very much anybody's game. Checkpoints have not been cleared. There are very, very few points on the board. Rain is going to come out from the Nautilus over on UCD, and with several members on RIT down, UCD is going to really want to, if they can, make sure to get this checkpoint cleared so they know that, okay, we got the first checkpoint. They go in for that dunk. Wishy-Washy is able to get it through there. A few members going down on RIT. If they're not careful and they lose a lot of people here, that could be disastrous for them. Splatent is guarding this area, dropping down, getting a really good pick. Does see Nightbloom is going to start go dancing around with them as the rest of the team comes in. They were able to make sure that while they did lose the check, UCD cannot push in further. 68, not difficult to beat, so long as RIT can start taking tons of control in mid. But again, this has been so back and forth. It's been a lot of skirmishing, but a lot of people going down and not necessarily getting a whole lot out of it in terms of value. But victory, pick after pick here, gonna be really, really helpful because the rest of their team was coming back and being like, all right, let's go, guys. We got to get that checkpoint. I'm here guarding it, and the rest of UCD's coming in.
Yes, and you see, like kind of we saw before, just a little bit of hesitancy, and that trade is, excuse me, whoa, going to give them the wipeout. And you see, just in no time at all, that crab comes out, and I think Pampers already ready to go past there. They signal to their team that there is someone behind trying to get that pick on them. So now Pampers just trying to get more points on the board. Really good call here, because it seems as though that makes all the difference. They're down to a 45, which usually wouldn't seem like much, but definitely is a lot on a place like Scorch Gorge, where pushing it into this court area is so difficult. Not to mention, UCD have yet to get, I think, their first check. So they have even more than just running it and getting it into those 20s to deal with. While RIT does pick up, they are moving forward, moving and schmoving with their Innova, who has that jet, and you know, they have a mountain in front of them from what I see.
It is going to be tough. They still have not cleared that first checkpoint. UCD was able to do so. Beam is going to get that from afar with the slash. I thought they were even going to go down to the Rainmaker fire, which doesn't matter if they get the pick on the Rainmaker, but no. They said, I'm doing this style. I didn't even trade out.
Listen, you are someone who has a tri-slasher main on their team. You know that sometimes in Rainmaker, they're like, sure, I might go down, but I'm just trying to end the game is what I'm doing. I might trade out, I might go down, but as long as the Rainmaker holder goes down, you know, as long as I get that tape across the screen, I've done my job. And you see, against all odds, we said it would be difficult, but not impossible.
Game 7.
2 games in a row, UCD has taken it. So like I said, I would want Inkblot Tower. You got to put in the work to do that, to reverse sweep essentially. And the Game 7 is here, and this is for all the marbles, Rose.
I know. Again, last night we did a full set, and here we do a full set.
9 games. And now
it's only 7. And you know, I genuinely think it's anybody's game here. But if you're RIT Orange Ocean and you were feeling pretty good on, you know, going into game 5, and now you're like, oh gosh. You just gotta like, oh, be like, all right, it's fine, we can bring it back. We just gotta win this one, it's all good. And if you're Splatoon White, maybe you're going, oh, look at all this momentum we got. Because like, momentum's a very, very real thing, and losing momentum is so real. It's just like, oh, we were feeling really good, and then we made a really bad mistake that led to that game loss, and now that's just like sitting in the back of our minds.
Yeah, it can be lethal. And if I remember correctly, RIT Orange Ocean, they took a game of Tower, and I think, I'm trying to remember, was this kind of a, because I'm not to get my wires crossed with last night, I think it was it a decisive game, that Tower game?
That we saw? It may have been.
I think that, I'm trying to remember where it was specifically. I think if let's see, Urchin Zones, and then we had Clams on Crab Leg. Where even was the
Are you thinking for today?
Yes.
They were on Museum.
Oh, yes.
TC Museum game.
And we saw that RIT was able to, it was decisive. They were able to just like completely lock UCD out of even getting onto their plat. So I think when you think of it that way and say, listen, we effectively locked them out of getting, I think they maybe broke checkpoint 1, maybe.
Yeah, but it was so decisive. Let's just do it again.
And honestly, everything was really back and forth in both of those games. None of those games that UCD took were kind of, you know, them just sweeping RIT Ocean. It was like super deadlocked up until really like maybe the last minute and 30 seconds. So RIT Orange Ocean, of course, they have lost the momentum effectively. But I think if they say, we are the better tower team, we've got this, we'll lock them out like last time, they may have it. We'll see.
Loading into our final game, the game decider for our Week 1 Division 1 matchup here on CCA. UCD versus RIT. We do have Keepery House on that Rapid Pro we were talking about earlier. Comps that we're now very familiar with both teams using for themselves. They've both worked very, very well. So it's really just going to depend on who has the stronger opening. And right now it is UCD going full in. Pampers is going to have to make sure to not get taken out by Keepery House. Will have to back up there because throwing that rain out is going to be really helpful for getting the team past this choke point, getting past this first tower checkpoint. But that's going to be a lot of people going down. Pampers has to give up that space, and they do. RIT able to stop the bleeding, and 83 point, getting down to 83, not a big deal. Not a big deal. They can just go, you know what? All right, now we start our counter, and what a time to start a counter.
Yeah, I would honestly argue sometimes the opening doesn't even really give you all that information. Very often on Inkblot, I see one team just get a wipeout. So of course the other team starts the push, and then when it's time to move up to the plat, they just kind of get annihilated, and then they get counter pushed like we're seeing here. You see everyone is squatted up, Never Lucky trying to get that pick. Interestingly enough, yeah, you have everyone heading up to that top left to see if they can take those bats. And you see we're down to 26. Of course, they forced everybody out of that position with their specials. We've got that rain active as well as that Booyah Bomb that forced everyone off of the plat, off of the tower. But you were saying 83, not so much. 23. now that's a score.
Yeah, that is a good place to be sitting, even not clearing that final checkpoint, getting down to there, managing to get all the way down to 22, going to be very, very good for RIT. They know they don't have to go crazy. They're still going crazy, though, as you can see. They're pushing in, saying the best defense is a very, very strong offense. Pampers literally backed into a corner here, forced to jump out. I think they thought, oh no, what if that Booyah comes right here? And this might be the beginning of a big counter push again for UCD. They had that early opening, but weren't able to translate it into a whole lot. Beam is trying to take those bats, but forced to give them up. They just cannot pick them there. It looks like we're just getting pulled in multiple directions. So even though some picks are happening in UCD's favor, they're still down an advantage here. They're gonna have to just be like, okay, we can't move in off of that. We gotta just hope for a neutral state and move in from there.
Yeah, we're running into this issue where it seems as though UCD just can't seem to walk. They can't keep their positioning. And I feel like this is a repeat of essentially what we saw on Museum de Alfonsino, where even when they get the people down, you think, oh, this is the push. You have a double here from Splatant. They come back in full force just like this. They are in the bats on their plat. We saw that several times on Museum as well. And it feels like, all the while, regardless of if they're able to stop them or not, time is ticking. The score is ticking. They are already making it past the third checkpoint. And now this is their last chance. It is just going to be the bucket that's up. Never Lucky is going to get out of dodge, but they have pushed their 22 down to a 6 rows, and there's only a minute 20 left. UCD, what they're doing clearly isn't working, so they're going to have to figure out something and figure it out now.
Getting down all the way to 5 is going to be a really, really tough ask for them. But they have really gritted their teeth throughout this match. When we thought, they might be down and out, they said, we are bringing this back to a game 7. We're going to win 3 games in a row. But you cannot deny this is going to be really, really tough to recover from. They've been trying to throw things to the wall, but nothing is sticking. They keep getting picked off here, and trades are not going to benefit them. At this point, they're not even getting many trades. You see, Splatin's been just walking all over them going in here. And just going in with teammates. Victory, of course, also can go in and go take those really aggressive positions. And they've just been on the back foot. Not something you want to be on entering the final 30 seconds.
Yes, RIT is like an absolute just wave. They conquer all of the space that they go into. You have everyone in bats from UCD trying to control everything. 2 members ultimately going to go down here for RIT, but we are just 10 seconds left in here. Never Lucky going to run out while the cooler comes out, and Victory gonna attack Wishy-Washy there on that tower, and those are GG strikes and GG indeed, because that ends not only the game, but the set for RIT in a 4-3 in this best of 7.
They played that so well. They knew, hey, we're going to send in somebody to start causing some chaos and some panic, and then we're going to use the GG special, and we have somebody already in position to hop on that tower. It's not simply to delay them from getting on tower. We have somebody ready to jump on the tower with those strikes. It's just a very quick ending of that overtime. Wow.
They did what they needed to do, really.
Yeah.
Like we said, when you were saying, they were being a little goofy at the end there, I was like, it's because they have the GG specials and a brush. So they're like, we can just attack the tower whenever we feel like it. Very unfortunate, I think, for EaUCD Splatoon White, that they were in that position once again on tower, one of the toughest matchups for them, given the specials on RIT Orange Ocean. But like I said, I think they said on tower, we ate that up. That might be their best mode, perhaps, because at the end, they did not have the momentum, but they trusted in themselves, and it worked out. They closed out the set. Maybe not as with a little bit of extra, a little bit longer than they maybe would have liked. But hey, especially we're on the East Coast, it is 6 o'clock for them, but they got it done, and they got the set.
Speaking of it being 6 o'clock, we do have our next CCA match ready to go, so we're going to be hopping off. But you also have another match to watch, going to be between HSK Violet and UCSD Gold. Kyon and Sibarina will be coming on in. Sasu and I are going to be stepping off. Where can people find you, Sasu?
Well, you can find me at Sasu in Your Pants. That's SASUIN, the letters UR Pants. Practically anywhere. I'm going to shout out Metro Inc. for those of you interested in lands. It seems like gridlock is upon us, perhaps. So definitely follow at Metro Inc. to possibly go to an in-person event. But Rose, where can the people find you if they'd like to keep up with you?
You can find me over on my Twitch channel, Rose of Battle, over on YouTube, Instagram, Blue Sky, various places. I will be there as Rose of Battle. You can see me and the 3 beautiful cats that I have being cute stinkers. That's going to be it from us. Amazing set, and hope you'll are staying tuned for the next one coming in here shortly.